Hi, everybody. Hope you're having a really nice night. Thanks for joining us for our second information night. Having a Hi, everybody. Having a great conversation today with a very impressive youth who I met not long ago, a few months ago through some of the work that we've been doing with tobacco prevention. I met Mark, and Mark came to our program and did a fantastic presentation on discussing the social determinants of health as they relate to LGBTQ people and smoking. And I was so fascinated by all of the research this young person had done that I just had to have him join us here on a live video to have this conversation. So, hi, Mark. How are you? Are you? I don't see you. Let's see. Were you able to join? Give me 1 second. Sorry about that. Folks having a little technical issues, but we're going to fix them in just a second. So, oh, there you are.
Hi, everyone.
Hey, Mark, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Thank you so much for being here. I was just talking a little bit about you and how just a few months ago you came to the center and you had this wonderful presentation that you did for us and some of our staff, and it was just so well researched and focused on social determinants to health and LGBTQ people and smoking. And I remember I talked to you then saying, this is wonderful. We need to share this with community. So thank you for agreeing to sharing it with us tonight. But Mark, tell us a little bit about who you are so we can get to know you a little more.
Yeah, definitely. Well, as you already know, my name is Mark Saldua. My pronouns are he, him, his. I recently graduated with my Bachelor of Science in Public Health at UC Irvine. Go Anteaters. I also recently completed my internship at Partners for Wellness, formerly known as the National Council on Alcoholism and Drug Dependence, where my primary research was on tobacco prevention. From there, I developed a passion for finding solutions to health disparities within marginalized communities. Also currently I work as a cosmetic chemist. It is, completely different from previously interning at a nonprofit, but I do plan on hopping back in the nonprofit sector, hopefully soon. I do find that, raising awareness to social justice issues is something that is very important to me and fulfilling.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here again. So let's just jump right in, because you spent a lot of time. It was very obvious to me. You spent a lot of time doing all that research and you put it together beautifully. So let's dig in, right? My question to you is, how did tobacco integrate itself into the LGBTQ community?
Yeah, definitely. A great first question. Smoking remains to be the #1 preventable death in the United States world and worldwide. And more specifically, the LGBTQ community is disproportionately impacted by tobacco use. And with that being said, many LGBTQ lives are cut short due to this problem. And to answer your question, Tony, this health disparity is due to a multitude of factors, and really I want to narrow it down to two. The stressors and social discrimination LGBTQ people face, and two, strategic marketing.
And so let's talk a little bit about the stressors, right? How does stress and social discrimination increase tobacco use amongst LGBTQ people?
Yeah, definitely. It is, no doubt that LGBTQ people experience life differently. Our community faces unique challenges, if I say so myself. And for example, coming out. Coming out is a life experience that only LGBTQ people face. And it's not an easy thing to do. It takes, a lot of courage to open yourself and be vulnerable. From personal experience, hiding, who you truly are can be, you know, anxious, and, you can feel antsy inside. And, what do people do when they feel anxious or, have anxiety? They seek ways to, cope with those emotions. And smoking is one of them. Besides coming out, there is also sexual orientation discrimination, transgender hate crimes, stigma, gender identity issues, which are all unique experiences that lead to feelings of anxiety.
Absolutely. It's such a process, right, to come out. And when we talk about the experiences of rejection, which are still quite common, even though LGBTQ has gained more visibility, those feelings still exist, and those actions, right, that we face as a community still exist as well. So, yeah, to me, it's not surprising that we find ways, we look for ways to cope with all of this added stress that we have to live with, right? But you mentioned something about marketing too. Because I feel that big tobacco companies know this. They know that LGBTQ people are much more vulnerable. So, has there been any specific marketing techniques employed to target LGBTQ people?
Yeah, elaborating on, the marketing aspect, big tobacco corporations utilize, manipulative yet, effective ways to get LGBTQ people to smoke. First is tobacco flavors. They create these enticing flavors like bubble gum, cotton candy, menthol, which makes it easier for people to start smoking. And it also makes it harder for those, to quit. And, second, tobacco companies incorporate, rainbows and tie in the theme of inclusivity in their ads and commercials to suggest that we should take pride in smoking, but really we should be taking pride in our own health.
Completely agree. So we're kind of talking about the LGBTQ community as a whole, but let me narrow it down a little more because you did something in your presentation where you literally broke it down right into subgroups of our community. So uh, can you tell us a little bit about bisexual individuals? Like what's happening as a society or socially, right? Or these determinants that may lead bisexual people to have higher smoking rates.
Yeah, great question. I would like to point out that, while the LGBTQ community is one community, all identities, make up that one community. And they're all different in their own unique way. Unfortunately, some identities are more prone to tobacco use than others. And, bringing up the topic of bisexuality, bisexual individuals are actually twice as likely to start smoking after coming out when compared to lesbian and gay individuals, according to a study by, you know, the School of Public Health in Boston University in 2020 last year. And there is no definite answer to explain this discrepancy of why bisexual individuals, smoke more. But I strongly believe that bisexual people experience stigma differently than gay, lesbian, and transgender individuals. Bisexual people are not only stigmatized by heterosexual individuals, but they're also stigmatized by members of their own community. And, to further support this claim, there has been research that shows that bisexual people do have, worse mental health than their lesbian and gay peers.
Yeah. And thank you for talking on that. Can we talk a little bit about maybe some common myths about bisexual people that really can become, can really weigh a person down when you're living with this kind of myths around you, right? That could lead to higher rates of discrimination from both heterosexual individuals and individuals from the same members of the community as well.
Yeah, definitely. There are, several common myths regarding bisexual people, which put them in a negative light. For instance, they say that bisexuality is just a phase, or it's a gateway to being completely gay or being completely lesbian. Bisexuals are promiscuous because, it's really ludicrous to think that, if an individual likes more than one gender, they're automatically considered promiscuous. But, that's not true. And even extreme ones that suggest that, bisexuals are at fault for spreading, HIV and AIDS to the lesbian and heterosexual communities. And, lastly, bisexuality is not real. And as you can see, all of these myths are completely false. And if people have this negative perception about your identity or sexuality that is not true, it can definitely negatively impact your, mental health and state of being. And it goes back to where I mentioned how members of the LGBTQ people, use smoking as a coping mechanism to manage their emotions due to social discrimination and stigma.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, um, moving on with the questions, I want to know: are there any experiences that are unique to trans folk that can lead them to smoking?
Yes, similar with the issue with, bisexual individuals, transgender individuals also experience an entire unique set of challenges that ultimately lead to smoking as a coping mechanism. One, not all transgender individuals experience gender dysphoria, but identifying with a different gender than you were originally born can be extremely difficult, both, physically and mentally. And, two, we have anti-trans hate crimes. Um, During my independent research, the FBI Uniform Crime Report annually publishes an assortment of crime rates in the United States, one being anti-trans hate crimes. And anti-trans hate crime incidents actually increased by 20% in 2019. And this statistic is alarming, and being transgender and having to worry about hate crimes can cause anxiety, which can then possibly lead to smoking as a coping mechanism.
And what is the impact of smoking for trans people who are transitioning?
Another excellent point to bring up is that smoking can negatively impact the transitioning process for transgender individuals when they undergo gender reassignment surgery. More specifically, smoking can threaten the nipple grafts for female to male individuals. The most common type of top surgery is the double incision method, and where the nipple areola complex is completely removed and grafted on in a higher position on the chest to emulate the nipple placement of a man. And the harmful effects can interfere with that procedure. And not to get too technical, but smoking narrows the blood vessels and cuts the amount of blood and oxygen needed to reach those surgical areas. And if blood vessels can't reach the nipple graft or the other surgical areas, transgender individuals, risk losing their nipples.
Wow,
And also more general risk, it can also delay wound healing and complicate the anesthesia process.
of course. Mark, again, I'm so happy that you're doing this and having this conversation with us. And I have a question, not related to tobacco per se, but um, as a young adult, because you are so young and creating change already in your community by doing this kind of research and educating us on it, uh, what motivated you to be this interested in public health?
Thanks for asking that question. Being a member of the LGBTQ community myself and being an Asian American, I found that it's important to utilize my voice and bring awareness. To be quite frank with you, I was not always an active member of social justice issues. Growing up as a first generation student in an Asian household, I was always taught that if you want to live a problematic free life, always conform and, keep your lips sealed and proceed with life. And for a long time, I did that, and it didn't feel good. I knew that I had to, you know, stand up and utilize my voice, and especially when I have a platform, such as this. And during my undergrad at UC Irvine, like I mentioned previously, interning at a nonprofit for tobacco prevention, um, it also kind of increased my passion for public health and health equity.
God. Well, I mean, thank you. I'm so impressed. I feel like whenever I meet young people who want to create a difference in their communities and specifically a difference when it comes to advocating for health needs, it just pulls out of my heart. I'm a huge health nerd and it's my passion. It's what I'm here to do. So I love meeting more people like me who I know you are invested in creating change and setting some policy that's going to make life easier for LGBTQ people. But so I noticed that when you did your research, you also focused a little bit on like HIV, right? Which I thought was fascinating. So, is there a relationship between HIV positive individuals who are LGBTQ and high rates of tobacco use?
Great question. And yes, there is a relationship. The prevalence of smoking among people living with HIV is, higher than the general population. People living with HIV commonly tend to have less formal education and come from lower socioeconomic backgrounds. And with that being said, they don't have the proper tools to learn about proper prevention techniques or, resources. And those living with HIV, once again, with, the issue of bisexuality and transgender, those living with HIV also experience an entire unique set of challenges. Not only are they stigmatized for their sexuality, they're also stigmatized and judged for their status, and being treated or treated differently for, having HIV can make it even more tempting to smoke or to find other unhealthy ways to cope.
Yeah, absolutely. Uh, has there been any research analyzing the effects of HIV/AIDS in smoking?
Yes, there has been research analyzing the effects of HIV and AIDS in smoking. During my independent research, I found a study that compared the life expectancy of non-smokers with HIV and smokers with HIV. And in some, we found that, a person with HIV lost 5 years of life due to the disease, but a person with HIV who also smoked lost a total of 12 years of life. And,
Wow.
yeah, as a result, this indicates that smokers with HIV lost more years of life from smoking than from just HIV alone.
That's incredibly significant to know. And this is based on a study, right? I believe the study took place in somewhere in Europe. But what the study really, the findings here are that, again, in people who are LGBT or someone who is HIV positive and smokes, can lose up to 12 years of life just because of smoking being a compounding factor, right, to life expectancy. So I found that fascinating that, I mean, we are losing members of our community, and this can be prevented. This could be prevented, and there's more we can do. We're coming to a very close end. There's just a few more questions. So if anybody has questions for Mark or for myself, please send them at us. But Mark, in your research, did you find any intersections of gender, sexuality, race, and ethnicity?
Yes, I did find intersections of gender, sexuality, and race and ethnicity. I also believe that only focusing on sexual orientation is not sufficient to address the intersectionality of oppression when it comes to, these other aspects, such as gender, sexuality, and race and ethnicity. And briefly, intersectionality is a term used to describe how gender, race, and ethnicity, sexual orientation, class, and other individual characteristics, intersect with one another. For example, uh, an African American man has to deal with racism, but an African gay American man, has to deal with not only racism, but also homophobia. And with that being said, these intersecting characteristics also apply to tobacco use and ultimately suppress individuals to become more susceptible to tobacco.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, in all of this research, and I think this is actually probably my favorite question because I believe the youth is going to shape the future. You're the ones who are going to change this world for us. Uh, as a young adult, what solutions do you propose?
Everyone's quit journey is unique, and there are many ways to help smokers become smoke free. I believe there is a need for implementing smoking cessation interventions that are, specifically tailored for the LGBT community, and banning the sale of flavored tobacco. Senate Bill 793, for example. The city council banned the sale of and flavored tobacco products and prohibited the use of, tobacco related coupons in West Hollywood, California, actually, which is, pretty fantastic. And, lastly, prevention, ensuring that adults and youth are properly educated on the risk of smoking. The LGBTQ Center, Orange County, offers great tobacco cessation services and resources for those looking to quit. And they also offer, the LGBTQ Coalition, which, I was previously involved in. And it's a great way to get involved in the community and ensure that your voice is heard. And you can check that out all on the LGBTQ Center OC website.
Thank you so much. You just said it perfectly. Yeah, if you want to quit smoking, or anybody who wants to quit smoking, go to our website, www.lgbtqcenteroc.org. We have a programs and services tab, and then from there, just click on tobacco cessation. You can also click on the tobacco programs, become involved with our coalitions, become involved with some of our policy work around health and tobacco prevention. We can link you to cessation services, so you can be supported from your LGBTQ community as you go through this journey, because we all want to be healthy together. We had a question: where can we find this information? We're slowly working to update our website, specifically our tobacco page, to have all of this information, and hopefully we can continue to work with Mark a little bit to take some of this research that he's done that's fantastic, and put it into an infographic form so that it can live on it can just live out there so that we can all be informed and know this. But Mark, thank you. Thank you so much. Any final thoughts, any final comments you wanna leave our audience with?
Thank you so much for having me. And, like I mentioned, everyone's quit journey is different. Always stay true to yourself and, you know, live life to the fullest.
Thank you. I'm so inspired. I am so inspired when I meet youth who, like you, who just do this great work, and they do it out of a passion, and it came out of an internship, and so congratulations and thank you for sharing this info with us. Thank you everybody who was here watching for hanging out with us tonight. It was a short one, but it was incredibly informative. So if we have, I mean, we have no more questions. I think we're good. But everybody, thank you so much. Have a great night. I learned a lot. Thank you, Mark, for sharing it with us.
Thank you so much. Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.